Wednesday morning. If you're on the West, happy Wednesday afternoon. If you're on the East, and just happy Wednesday, period. I remember early in my speaking career, I got a chance to hang out with a guy named Zig Ziglar. His son is on the Fuel platform as an instructor, and he's become a dear friend. But Zig used to say all the time, he would take a day and he would just put a positive adjective in front of the day. And he always called Wednesdays wonderful. So welcome to Wonderful Wednesday as we kick off Leadership Live this week. We're going to do something different this week. We are going to talk about a leadership principle, and we're going to do it in a way that allows us to interact. We are not showcasing one of our instructor guests this week. I just wanted to, as an instructor, obviously, and a communicator, I wanted to bring a discussion to the table, which I think is probably the most powerful discussion we could ever have. And so that's what's going to be in store today. We're going to be talking about purpose-driven leadership. Purpose-driven leadership. And I've said this before that everybody's a leader. You might be a leader of one, which is you. You might be a leader of two, which is you have an assistant. You might be a leader of 100, which means you have a team. All of us are leading, right? And all successful leadership starts with ourselves, and we will unpack this as we go. If we go to chat real quick and we start looking at the people coming in, tell us where you're coming from. And I'm thinking today is going to be a more intimate session than any of our other days where we showcase a co-host. But I just want to hear from you, and you can tell me where you're at and tell me where you're coming from. I'm in Las Vegas today, which I think we finally turned the heat corner, and it's about 75. So that's always nice when we go from 115 to 75. And great to have you guys here. And I'm going to make sure that everyone is checked. That's great. And so let me just change this real quick and let's go. So Melody, hi. BNO, hi. Allison, hi. Paul, hi. Wellman, hi. Good to see you guys. Greetings from San Francisco Bay Area. I love San Fran. Okay, here we go. And so the one thing I want to make sure everybody is always aware of is the relationship between purpose and performance. Okay, the relationship between those two. And so when I came up with purpose-driven leadership, it was really about what does it really look like? And when you have a clear purpose and you're leading people, what does it really look like? And I remember one of the stories I learned as a branch manager in the loan business, and I think that would have put me at right around 1988 or 89, and I had about 10 loan officers. I remember somebody talking to me about a high performance culture. And I remembered that everybody on the team needs to realize that they're part of a high performance culture. And the first takeaway I would like you to ask yourself is, do you see the relationship between purpose and a high performance culture? Do you see that? And that would assume a couple of things. One would be that you're very clear on your purpose. And the second would be that the team you lead is also very clear on their purpose. And there's a story, I'm going to try and tell a lot of stories as we go through this. And again, if you guys have a story that resonates and you want to chime in and chat or just give some commentary or raise a hand, we can do all this kind of stuff. But I remember a story where President Kennedy was talking at a NASA conference. So he was visiting NASA, the space program, and it was 1962. And when he went to the restroom, one of the janitors was in the restroom, and he asked the janitor, how he liked his job. And the janitor, if you can imagine, said, "Who wouldn't love my job?" Which, if you just stop right there, you go, wow. So A, you probably love your job because you have a job, but his answer was purposefully profound. He said, "Why would I not like my job? I'm helping put a man on the moon." And the question that has to be answered when we look at that illustration is, does your purpose resonate in such a way where it elevates the smallest role of anybody on your team to something more significant? And when we talk about being purpose driven, we talk about leading with significance. All right. So when we look at this and we look at the purpose idea, and we start to understand that when I first started writing about purpose, it was in my first book called The Power to Be Your Best, which was published in 2000. And I started talking about what really drives you. Right, what really, really, really drives you. Are you clear every single day on what drives you? 10 minutes ago, I hung up from a podcast, and there was about 200 people on the podcast. It was a live podcast. And we had 10 minutes with the host of the podcast before we went live. And the podcast host looked at me and asked this question. He asked me, what drives you? I mean, how are you still so energetic and so leaning in to helping people win? What drives you? And I said, you just said it, helping people win, right? And when we had this conversation, he said, when did you get clear on that? And I said, I had a conversation in 1987 with a guy named Dennis Waitley. Sadly, Dennis passed away about 3 months ago, wrote a lot of great books, was on the sales mastery stage. I actually wanted him to become a legend instructor for Fuel, and we can still make that happen with AI, even though he's passed away. But he wrote a book called Seeds of Greatness. And one of the things he said in Seeds of Greatness is your purpose creates the pull, Pull, to any vision you have. When you're clear on your purpose with your team, it creates a pull to that vision. He called it pull power. Now, listen carefully to this. He said the problem with most leaders is they deploy push power. Push power. They don't deploy pull power. We were showing a video yesterday. I can't pull it up as fast as I'd like, but it was a guy in front of a room. Imagine this. Imagine me speaking to 100 people. Imagine me pulling you up out of the audience. And imagine us taking a look at the audience and looking out at them. And imagine about 40 feet between, the door to enter the teaching room and maybe the wall of that room. So imagine you come up and we turn side by side and I walk you to the other side of the room, to the other wall on the other side. And we just walk, right? And now imagine me saying, let's go back halfway. And so we turn around and we walk halfway back. And then we're in the middle of the room and we're looking at each other. And I say to you, stay right where you are, but turn and look at me. And I go over to the entry door and I come at you with my hands up and you put your hands up and I start pushing and you start pushing. I didn't have to tell you to push back. I didn't have to tell you that I'm going to do this exercise in front of everybody. It's just natural. And the interesting thing about the exercise is that you cannot push people to different behaviors. You can't push yourself to a different behavior. When you have clarity around purpose, you're able to pull yourself and pull your team to that behavior. And so the coolest thing about this conversation is that everybody would like, I believe this, but why don't you just put a Y quickly in chat? Why don't you put a Y if you would like people on your team to be pulled to greatness? It may sound like a rhetorical question, but pulled to greatness, right? Not pushed, but pulled to greatness. Go ahead and put a Y in chat. I certainly want it for our Fuel team. I would, it's like, duh. But then the question becomes, how are you engaging them so that you can actually lead them through purpose? So I want to set the kind of the thesis for this, right? And so I wrote down on my notes, purpose-driven leadership is the art of aligning who you are and what you do with a clear and compelling why. Leaders who lead with purpose inspire deeper commitment, unlock higher performance, and leave a lasting impact. Teams just don't follow what you do, they follow why you do it. So I was having a conversation, and ironically, yesterday, this gentleman was on a call that I was hosting. His name is Hovik Shahanian, and Hovik came to one of our 5-day sales events, I think it was 2013. And in 2013, he was struggling with his why. He was really struggling with creating purpose. And The program started on a Monday evening and went all the way to Friday. And he approached me at the end of Wednesday and said, "Can I talk to you about purpose tomorrow morning?" So we met a little bit earlier, 7 o'clock in the morning. We sat down and he said, I'm getting clearer and clearer on this. And I want to run by what my rough idea is. And so he put it out to me and we talked a little bit about it. And I kind of ran it through this filter. Is it aligning you with who you are? Does it give you a clearer and more compelling motivation around why you're doing what you're doing? Does it create anticipation and excitement that when your team hears it, they will follow you more, they will love you even more? And so all those boxes got checked. So I said, have you written it down yet? And he said no. And so we grabbed a pad of paper from the hotel that we were in, and he started writing. And then I looked at it and I made some comments. And then he started writing, and I looked at it and made some comments. And I kept doing this and kept kind of making comments. And I think that whole thing went on for maybe 15 minutes or so. And at the end, he said, how does this sound? And so he showed it to me, and I'm going to try to do something real quick here if I have sharing power. I want to show you because I actually have the copy of what he wrote down. Just a second here. I want you to see this, and I want you to see how beautiful this is. Scott, I'm assuming I have sharing privileges. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you, and I want you to see what he actually came up with. So he wrote down, I want to be a source of pride and inspiration to my family, friends, and team. And he signed it December 5th, 2013. So, we're a couple months away from December starting, and it's 2025. And he sent me this text a while back, probably 2 years ago, and he said, "Prayers for Matt today. My son was almost killed in a motorcycle accident." Some of you know that, some of you don't, but it's irrelevant at this point. But he showed up every day for Matt and text, and at the very end, when Matt was able to recover and come out of his coma, he kept sharing, which is, to be a pride and a source of inspiration was part of his purpose. And you can see here, I'm not sure if you're already in Texas, but I can't imagine it'll be easy given all that's happening here with, Matt and everything. May everyone attending discover their core purpose early in the week and live it daily for the next 9 years. Let me know how I can be of service to you and your family today. So I share that with you because it's simply a piece of paper that somebody took the time to kind of formulate, writing down what was important to him and why it was important to him and what now motivates him. So when we look at this thesis that purpose-driven leadership is the art of aligning who you are and what you do with a clear and compelling why, if you're a leader who leads with purpose, you will inspire deeper commitment. We all want that. Unlock higher performance. We all want that. And leave a lasting impact. We all want that. Teams don't just follow you for what you do, they follow you for why you do it. So here's some teaching points, right? So the first thing I'd like you to maybe write down is clarity of purpose fuels, and yes, pun intended, because this is the fuel universe, this is fuel nation. Hundreds and hundreds of leaders watch these as they become available. Clarity of purpose fuels direction. People lose their way, I believe, when leaders lose their why. People lose their way when leaders lose their why. And what's very interesting about this is there's a gentleman by the name of Rich Land, and Rich has been in my orbit for 30 years or so. And he came to me one day and he said, "I don't feel that I'm being a purposeful leader." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I have 58 salespeople that I lead, and I don't feel I'm giving any one of them my best me." And I go, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because a lot of them that I have to give my time to, it doesn't feel like that time is appreciated or valued. And I'm just stuck." And I go, "Is there a relationship between the people you give your time to and how you feel and their level of production?" And he said, "Absolutely." And I said to him, I said, when you watch people that you're talking to as a leader not be clear on where they're going, they've lost their way. And let me ask you, Rich, what is your why? What is your strategic purpose in being a leader? And he said, I want to help my sales team's goals come true. And I asked him, I said, what would that mean to you if you could help your sales team's goals come true? And he said, I would feel fulfilled and joyful. And I said, is there anybody you've been working with which you don't think is connected with that why and wanting it to happen? He goes, yeah. So I said, here's what we need to do. And this is going to feel maybe a little bit abrupt. It could feel a little bit painful. And I'll precede my story by just saying, I have no idea how many people you lead, but it doesn't really matter. What Rich said to me is there's 58 people on my team, and I've already identified about 20 of them that it's just not going to work. No matter what I do, no matter how we do it, it's just not going to work. And you guys probably know, if you've followed anything that I've ever taught, that I believe that one of the great success strategies is more from less. And more from less is only risky if you're not giving more of your time to the best people, which is the less amount of people that really want to grow, right? So over 90 days, Rich cut that sales team from 58 all the way down to 37. And I want to tell you that he reported in the second month that production for the 37 went up 23% when he cleared the decks and got rid of the 21 that he had just been trying to get on the right track, and it just wasn't working. And nobody was bad and wrong. Okay. Nobody was a loser. It wasn't even about that. It was just, this is not a fit. This is not right. When all 58 people there were there, their average sales, and these guys were in the lending business, their average loans per month per person was $410,000. $410,000 today is one loan. And so he said, I want the 37 to increase their volume. And so to get rid of the 21 and not give them time and to double down on the team that was there because his why was joy and fulfillment, then what happened at the end of the 90th day is that volume had already gone to over 800,000. And 1 year later, the 37 were averaging 1.3 million a month. And then he said, I think we have it figured out. And now, because everybody on the team is doing more volume, it's attracting other people from other companies to come to our company because they see that people are doing more business here than they are at the company these guys are at. So what is the message? The message is that when people aren't performing, you have to come back to your why. And you have to be bold enough and brave enough to be able to share that, feel it, have that become an integral part of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. Because to try to get more from less is probably the fastest way to having a low performance culture. And sometimes you don't even know you have a low performance culture until you do some awareness and some observation and even some mathematics and start to realize what happened. 2 years after that conversation with Rich began, the average sales per month for this team was $2.7 million. So that's how this works, right? Your why illuminates the way. Your why illuminates the way. So I love these thoughts, and Donnie, thanks for writing that in. It's really, really critical that this thesis is never forgotten. Purpose-driven leadership is the art of aligning who you are with what you do with a clear, compelling why. Why was not invented by Simon Sinek. Why was not invented by me. Why was invented thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Socrates, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, talked about purpose and why. So it's not a new idea, but it's an idea that always, I think, needs clarifying and refreshing, particularly because, as John Maxwell says, one of my great friends, one of the world's greatest leadership teachers, he goes, fuzzy leaders create fuzzy followers. If you're not clear, the people following you are not clear. And as I've mentioned in previous leadership lives, this Gallup leadership report is very revealing that people want more hope from their leaders and people want more trust with their leaders. The top two responses the world said they want from their leaders is more hope and more trust. So that leads us to a different way of leading, which is the second thing I want you to write down. So teaching point number one is clarity of purpose fuels direction. Teaching point number two is purpose inspires engagement beyond obligation. Okay, purpose inspires engagement beyond obligation. So I'll give you an example that might be fairly simplistic to hear, but then it might be a little bit different to implement as you think about it. So growing up in the lending business and being given the opportunity to help people finance real estate, um, I saw some differentiation, and I'll give you this idea first and foremost. When I was 24 years old, I decided I did not want to be a loan officer. I thought that that was not differentiating. I thought that a loan officer was a dime a dozen. There was hundreds of them in the city that I was working in, and it just didn't feel like it was compelling enough. Probably my first venture into disruptive branding, I guess I would say. So in those days, the business cards were horizontal, right? Horizontal, and every card you could. Oh, I wasn't. I love the hearts. It wasn't supposed to be about that, but it's all good. Um, Everybody would drop their cards off and hope that somebody would call them back, right? And so if you took a stack of business cards and they were all horizontal, then you had a stack of horizontal business cards. And I went to my branch manager at the time and I said, Bob, I'd like to do two things with your permission. I would like to have a typesetter turn my business card from horizontal to vertical. I'd like it to be about a quarter inch bigger as a business card so that it stands out from any other business card stack. And then I would like to change my title from loan officer to mortgage consultant. And he did it. I was a good producer, and he did it. And I felt right then and there was um, engagement, right? It was like I'm doing something different. I'm not just a loan officer. I don't even want to be a loan officer. I want to be a mortgage consultant. And then it got down to I started a mastermind group probably in 1988, and one of the things we started talking about was let's move from one and done to customers for life, lender for life. Let's move to that kind of thinking, right? So that moved us into deeper engagement because all of a sudden now it was like, I'm not going to just help you one time buy a house or invest in real estate or get financing to do either one of those things, which is in many cases one of the same, buying a house and investing in real estate, but also just investing, right? There was engagement. And so we got to this point where it was no longer about the loans, it was about families. And I give credit to the industry I serve because many of the people I was coaching came up with that and said, why don't we just stop thinking about closing loans and why don't we just start thinking about helping families? And then one of our top producers who will be showcased this year when we do our sales master event in October. She said 2 weeks ago, she goes, the greatest joy in inspired engagement is people say yes faster. And I go, what do you mean by that, Denise? And she goes, well, I work 12 hours a week and I help 30 families a month finance real estate. It's the dream. 12 hours a week and 30 loans. And by the way, 30 loans a month is like the top 1/4 of 1% of production in the country, probably. And she said, but everybody's engaged and everybody's inspired. And I go, why? And she goes, because of my purpose. And I go, okay, remind me. And she goes, I tell borrowers that are going to be buying real estate how I am different than every lender out there is I help my buyers build wealth through owning real estate. It's not about a loan. It's not about interest rates. It's not about anything. I help people build wealth through real estate. So it changes the branding. It changes the whole idea. And she said, and the key to this is when I say that to them, they go, well, how do you do that? And then she gets to say as a leader, I'm glad you asked. Let me show you, right? So we're all leaders. She happens to lead real estate agents. She happens to lead businesses and associations. We're all at some level leaders, right? But the excitement that she and her team have is we don't do loans. Loans is just the business vehicle that creates cash for the business. What we do is we transform people's lives and help them build wealth through home ownership. everybody can get behind that and everybody can begin talking that way. So when you have that kind of engagement and you have in one fell swoop the ability to not have competition by saying like, most lenders are happy to talk to you about interest rates and get you pre-approved or pre-qualified for a loan. We're a little bit different. We only do discovery calls. Our goal is to help our borrowers build wealth through real estate, and that's what makes us different than any lender in town. So when you have this kind of purpose, always take this. And I was talking to her 2 weeks ago, and she said every team meeting, I start off. It's weekly, right? I start off every team meeting, and I ask the team, "What do we do to make money?" And the team recites it. We help people build wealth through owning real estate. Boom. So when the whole team gets around the why, then we have something very, very important. So I'm going to take a break and I'm going to ask you guys to put anything in chat you'd like to put in. We've got a pretty tight group here. If you're on YouTube, thank you for watching the live stream. And if you're here on the platform, any questions, comments you'd like to put in the chat. I think I'd like to bring it alive. We've got another teaching point that I want to share with you, but this is a point for you to engage. So I like what Paul said, coincides with Raving Fans. When Raving Fans was written by Ken Blanchard, it was after his infamous book, The 1 Minute Manager. He wrote a series, a trilogy everybody probably knows about. Raving Fans was number one. Big Bucks was number three. What was number two? Paul, do you remember the book in between Raving Fans and Big Bucks? Big Bucks was how to make more money as a leader with a team around Raving Fans. Let me just see real quick. Yeah, I want to do this because Ken's a good friend of mine. He's probably in his late 80s right now, and just a really exciting influencer. Okay, here we go. Ken Blanchard wrote 3 books, Raving Fans and Big Bucks, and there's a book in between in the trilogy I can't remember the name of. Do you know the name? Gung Ho. Yeah, the book you're thinking of is Gung Ho, Turn on the People in Any Organization. Ken Blanchard wrote Raving Fans in 93, Gung Ho in 97, and Big Bucks in 2000. There you got it right there. Thank you, AI. Boom. What's the easiest way to get leaders to help drive activity results through their employees' purpose? Okay. Donnie, thank you for that. You're always you're a wonderful human, period, end of story. And you have a heart for giving that is so generous. I just appreciate your mind and your heart and just the physicality of how you show up and all that goes along with that. I made a statement. I don't know, maybe 25 years ago. And when you're in the business I'm in as a communicator, you'll oftentimes come up with these one-liners, right? And you'll say it maybe for the first time on stage. And if you're situationally present, you'll watch people like they'll either say, "Can you say that again?" And to be honest, sometimes it is so unique as the first time I've said it that I can't even remember how it came out. But be that as it may, whenever you see activity like somebody says, "Say that again, I want to write it down," or "Say that again," or you watch people just writing it down, right? You remember that has got to become a signature line in my career and my brand, right? So when I was talking to this guy to the podcast this morning, and he asked, "What still motivates you?" I said, "Waking up every day and hearing from one person that I changed their life." And he goes, "Just one?" And I go, "Just one. That's all I need to hear." Sometimes, like this morning, I already have 6. And I'm not even working yet. I'm just in my meditation and kind of using that as positivity for my mindset in the morning. And I'd already had 6 when the podcast started with him at 9 o'clock. And it was like, I said to him, I said, and this gets Donnie to your question. I said to him, I said, and whenever they say thanks for changing my life, I look at them and I say, "No, I'm going to thank you for changing your life. I just showed up. You heard something you needed to hear when we were in the same room. And even though I'm on stage and you're out there, you heard what you needed to hear. And I want to give you the credit. You get 100%. You get the high five for changing your life because you took action and you trusted that. So Donnie, back to your question. So that one liner I said is you cannot move employees physically until you connect with them emotionally. And to unpack that statement is to look at Donnie and to look at his question and to look at how do we tie purpose and employee engagement and how do we give them more hope? Well, try this on for size, right? Try this on for size. How about a conversation with somebody that sounds like this? My goal as a leader is to help everybody on my team win. But what I know is everybody has a different reason for winning. What's yours? Well, boss, I really don't know what you mean. Well, you need to be very, very clear on why you show up every day. I mean, beyond the paycheck, what inspires you to be in the position you're in at this company? And obviously, I can't answer this because I'm just showing you kind of the questions. And let's say they say, well, I just love I love what we're about as a company. I love playing a role in it. It feels good to show up every day. It's positive. And then I would just look and say, okay, so if you love showing up, great. If it's positive and you love where we're going, great. What's important to you about the next 5 years and why? Where do you want to be in 5 years and what would that do for you or give you? And I start having this deeper conversation with them where we end up pulling out emotional words and, peace of mind, great emotional phrase, joy, happiness, low stress, pride, whatever that one word is, right? So then what ends up happening, and let's just say for the moment, you're my leader, and you know that my purpose is making a difference in each human's life that I get placed in front of. Okay, that is it for me. I mean, however I can do that, I want to do that. So if you came to me and said, "Hey, Todd, I know that your purpose is making a difference in people's lives, and I want to honor that purpose. I've observed that there's one skill set that I think if we develop that a little, you would get to experience that even more. Would you be open to a discussion about this skill set so that you could experience making a difference more frequently?" Now, just stop for a moment and ask yourself a question and even tell me in chat. If you had that dialogue, would you be able to tie the skill you want to teach them to the bigger motivation that they have? Just put a Y in chat if you see the relationship. This is not scientific. This is relationship. So anytime that I come onto Fuel, anytime I sit down and Todd wants to make a difference, but he needs to be a little bit better here. And I find a course that would allow him to be better here, then I get to assign that course to him. So if I'm going to try something right now because I told you guys at the start, this is going to be a more intimate conversation. Let me see if I have this pulled up. Yeah, so let's go and let me just pull this up. And Scott, just tell me if this shows up the right way on the screen. I think it probably will. Everybody see that?
You get the full screen, like everything.
How's that?
Your center's still a little small, but we see it, I think.
So let me stop. So where do I go on this? If I do a share, because
Window.
Zoom window, yeah, it's got content only, background, over the shoulder, side by side. Which one do I want?
Mm.
Click share sound, optimize for video sharing, and let me do this. Is that any better, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that, let me move this just a bit. There we go. So let's say that, let me refresh this for a moment. Okay. So let's say that I come into here and I got to move this. And let's say I type in helping find purpose. And let's see what comes up real quick. And that's just the search engine. Boom, boom, boom. Wondering if my connection is shot. Let's see here. So I come in, I'll do this one more time this way and finding.
Mine was a little laggy as well.
Pardon me?
Mine was a little laggy as well, so maybe
Okay.
they're pushing something.
So anyway, it pulls up a course, right?
Welcome to the next lesson.
So what I can do on this lesson is I can literally share the lesson. So how do I share the lesson? I come back right here, I hit the lesson, and if I go to carry, let's see here, let me just do this real quick. And I've got carry up. Where did carry go? Let's go back this way, and I go to carry. All these courses have something to do with purpose. Oh, I came back. Let's see if we can go to carry. And I pull up a carry. These are all great things. Let me just come back here. I'll go to instructors. I think we're still working on some back end stuff here. Let me try one more time. Whoops. So right down here at the bottom, so this is Helene, and we see this lesson. It's 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Right down here, you can see I assign the lesson, and I assign it to somebody that is on the team, and I hit assign, and we're off to the races. And the power of this is that as soon as that person watches that, and I can even go out and say, hey, I just sent you a lesson link. I know that making a difference is hugely important to you. I think this 6 minute lesson will help you really understand some ways you can use this in business, showing up each and every day. And I'm going to give this to you because you told me that you want to make a difference. And so when we do this kind of stuff and we use the tool that's there, then we start to ignite the relationship between I cannot tell you to do this and have you do it unless I connect what I'm asking you to do to your deeper purpose, right? So it's very powerful when we start to think this way. And so let me hit Renee up real quick and hit his question. Let's get here. There we go. What should a leader do when team members refuse to keep pace with the rest of the team? All right. A, life will give you what you tolerate. So you may want to just own that for a sec and understand that life will give you what you tolerate. So if I have a team member who's refusing to keep pace with the team, what I want to do is I want to either go into fuel and have a conversation with a leadership coach. Okay. And when you understand how powerful this is in the fuel platform, you will understand that you can do anything you want with anybody. Let me just come back here. You can hit this tab here. And so these are all the AI instructors, right? And we're adding 1 or 2 a week. So if we went to Jim Cathcart and and then we went to, let's see here, Jim's AI. So I go back to Jim's profile. This is always risky because this is not available to the public. You can see Jim way over here on the side, right? So I went full screen. If I came back and I didn't do full screen, you would have Jim. So let me pull up, Renee, your exact question. Okay, so let me just grab this, Renee. What should we do? Okay, now watch this.
Hi, Todd. How can I help you today?
Hey, Jim, struggling with a team member. What should a leader do when team members refuse to keep pace with the rest of the team?
Here's a thought. When a team member isn't keeping pace, a leader's role is to understand why first. Are they lacking skills, motivation, or facing personal challenges? Try this. Have a one-on-one conversation to listen and uncover the root cause without judgment. Then set clear expectations and offer support or resources to help them improve. Remember, leadership is about lifting others up, not just pushing them forward. Would you like me to share some lessons on handling team challenges?
I would like you to help me figure out how to approach this person. What should I say so that they're open to the idea of having this conversation?
Let me ask you something. What's your current relationship like with this team member? A good way to open the conversation is to express genuine care and curiosity. You might say something like, I've noticed some changes in your work pace.
So the bottom line to all of this is you have to address it. Ignoring it creates even more problems when we don't have an approach. Difficult conversations always get more difficult when they don't happen, and the chance to correct it early is linked to the very same thing we've been talking about. So if I take Renee's question and I don't know what this person's purpose is, then it's going to be very hard for me to link a behavior or an observation to them being excited about changing it. But let's say for a moment that they're just not keeping pace with the rest of the team. And I go, hey, Renee, I've been watching you for the last 2 or 3 weeks. It feels like something's off. I know you show up every day, you want to make a difference, but help me understand, is my observation of what's going on accurate? Well, yes, it is. I've just got a lot of stress, off the job stress right now. I've got stuff happening in my mind with my family every day. And, I can't focus as much as I need to focus. Well, what I need to do is I need to help. And I'm going to give you an example right now. I'm not going to say any names, but there's somebody on the fuel team that I made the same observation about. And this individual, when I approached the same way that I just kind of approached it, he told me, "Yeah, it's a pretty hard season right now. My aunt died, and pretty young guy, so his aunt is pretty young, and so he lost a family member, and that was really really hard." And so I was approaching him because there was some delays and things that he's usually right on top of. And so after doing that and having that conversation, we started to get back on track, but it wasn't like demonstrable. It wasn't like all of a sudden we had this fixed, right? Same kind of thing was going on. And then I started seeing it, Renee, go back down the wrong way, right? Back to where I had the conversation to try and fix it. And lo and behold, his niece passed away. And so we had two family deaths in 5 weeks. And you guys know as well as I do, anybody that loses two family members in 5 weeks is going to have a struggle with clarity and purpose and whatnot. And I asked him, I said, how can I help? And I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story, but he didn't have enough money to get his niece released from the hospital so he could bury her. And so he had all that stress going on, right? And so, I solved part of that for him and helped him along that pathway. But let's just understand we all have challenges with team members. I mean, the only way to not have a challenge is you to be your only team member, and a team of one never creates significance. It's easier maybe, but so is having a great team that's bought in and loves where you're going. And at Fuel, everybody knows that we're going to transform the life of people in the world, and they show up every day with the attitude and the focus and the purpose of being able to make something big happen. Let's go to Donnie Tuttle and see what Donnie has to say about leadership.
Hi, Todd. How can I help you today?
Hey, Donnie. I've really noticed the entire culture that I'm leading. There's about 80 people, and they all just seem down in the dumps. You got any advice?
Hey, I hear you. When a whole culture feels down, it's usually a sign that something's off in the shared vision or motivation. Here's a thought. Start by reconnecting your team to a clear, compelling vision that they care about. When people see the why behind what they do, it lights a fire.
So Donnie just said, when people see the why, this is not a pre-scripted response. This is Donnie's knowledge universe inside of Fuel. And what ends up happening is he just brought up in front of all of us, you got to reconnect the vision with the why. right? So when we understand this and we really get clear on these purposeful ideas that we've been talking about here, and really looking at what does it feel like to realize that purpose is everything. I mean, when you really understand this, purpose is everything. And so when I think about where we are right now with, maybe 20 minutes to go or so, I think about this last kind of idea. And it's so the first one we have is clarity of purpose fuels direction. The second thing we have is purpose inspires engagement beyond obligation. The third one is purpose builds resilience through challenges. So, everybody knows that we have the bigger the vision, generally speaking, the greater the opportunity and the greater the challenges, right? If the vision is huge, we are probably going to have more disconnected ends and situations that kind of pop up. If the vision is small, it doesn't mean it's not great. It just means we'll probably have less. Like I could have an individual vision that would be non-complex to solve. But if I have 100 people on my team or 80 people on my team and I have a vision that's a little bit more complex, I'm bound to have more loose ends, right? That I have to tie together. And so when we think about like hard markets, when we think about difficult seasons, when we think about just the power of positively seeing setbacks as setups instead of setbacks, right? It's a setup. I forget the football player that wrote a book called A Setback. A setback is a setup for a comeback. And I forget the football player, but it was a really great book to read. But it's all that resilience piece, right? And I got to tell you that, and you've all probably experienced this. The bigger the dream, the bigger the team, generally speaking, and the more complex the execution is going to be. So then it gets down to Willie Jolly. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Renee. Yeah, Willie Jolly wrote that book. So when it gets down to that, it gets down to okay, um, communication is the lubrication to a well-run team. So now it's going to be about how do we take all those things that might be happening because the vision's big? How do we take the why and recenter people, the 80 people? We just did a quick check-in with Donnie on his AI GPT, and we have that conversation. The more we communicate and the more we celebrate. I'll give you an example. Every time when we do our L10 meeting at Fuel, we start off with personal victories. And everybody goes around and you share one thing that's happened in the last week that is personal, that was a victory. And then you share one thing that was a business victory. So the whole state of the meeting is set up on positivity, right? And then we go, so what are the roadblocks? What are the fragments that are kind of peeling off the main goal? And how do we navigate around those? And it's always illustrative and it's always communal, which is important. It's not kumbaya communal, but we have each other's backs, right? And so it's everything that doesn't work out is a gift to making a change, so something does work out, and then everything that does work out is a validation that we need to keep expanding in that area. When we started with the AI coaches, the chat coaches, it was not very pretty. And now today we have 22 AI coaches that are going to be deployed this month into the Fuel network. So now it's like, okay, there's really no reason why anybody on the team couldn't have a conversation with somebody about fixing something that might be bothering them or getting some feedback on something that they want to do as a leader. And if you're their leader and you bring them that solution and you tie it to why, then you're going to get buy-in and you're going to get the adhesion that keeps people moving in the same direction. And that's the key. I grew up, and every summer I was a wrangler at a ranch in the White Mountains of Arizona. And at the end of every summer, we had to bring all the cattle and all the horses on a 12-mile journey down the hill and through the pastures. And, it was always interesting that the herd never ran just perfectly in line. You would have some stray, cows that would go one way or the other way. And then we brought the horses down, same kind of thing. But in general, you've got the guardrails, which could be me on a horse in the back right and another guy on the horse in the back left. And then you have the midsection, and then you have the front section. We can keep most of the herd going the right way, obviously with the purpose of getting to the safer ground so that they don't succumb to the harsh winters at 8,000 feet, right? same kind of thing. You know, we're never gonna. Sometimes it feels like we're herding cats. At the end of the day, if you have purpose-driven leadership, people will follow and they'll stay more in line because we have a unified reason we're doing what we're doing. Fuels is to transform the lives of millions, one person at a time, a company at a time. We want people to be happy, healthy, and achieve their best version of themselves possible. That's a very inspired vision. Everybody knows it, they own it, and that's what we're doing each and every day. So, Renee, just give me another chat input on the icebreaker. Most leaders never begin their meetings with icebreakers. This is a good idea because in high trust selling, the law of the hook says a captivated audience stays to the end. And when you open something, obviously, with something that gets people engaged and excited, like we were talking yesterday about branding, and people, you know, we're asking, what should a brand statement lead to? And a brand statement should lead to somebody saying, "That's cool, man. How do you do that?" Okay, so an icebreaker should lead to the way to ask the team to share at the start of the meeting. Yeah, most leaders never begin their meetings with icebreakers. Two, probably the fuel. What's a personal victory you had this week that most excites you, and what's a business victory you had that most excites you? So those are the three principles that I just wanted to kind of lay down for you. That if you practice clarity, it fuels direction. If you inspire engagement, it bypasses obligation. And if you build resilience, people get through challenges. And let's just understand that life is about challenges, right? And business is about challenges. And the only way you can avoid a challenge is to stay in your room, in a little space in your room, not open the door, not go out. And at the end of the day, you'll probably have less challenges. But if you're still alive, you have stuff to do. If you're still breathing, there's a way for you to inspire your own greatness. And, you know, when people watch the leader inspire and achieve his or her greatness, not because of pride, not because of ego, not because of any of that, but because it feels good. It feels good to be purposeful. It feels good to understand that hard times create bigger muscles. Renee just said, "Do you think resilience is innate, or can it be developed?" I don't know. I was on a podcast last Thursday, and the guy introduced me by he put this phrase in the introduction. I know Todd personally, and I have to tell you that he's probably had more challenges because he's a big thinker than anybody I know, and he's gotten through all of them. And it's very interesting, you know, and so I don't know that I was built for resilience, Renee, but you have two choices when things get hard. My pastor, when I was a kid, said that tough times never last, tough people do. Um, and I think that you get to choose. I get to choose. We all get to choose how we respond to difficulty. And sometimes you have to keep going. There's no choice. Um, you know, I bought a big company and lost a lot of money, and my wife died while I was trying to figure out how to lose a lot of money and not lose as much. And my kids lost their mom when they were 13 and 11. Sorry, 13, 11, not three, 13, 11. And, you know, 12 years later, they're sober. They were in addiction for 11 years. That was hard. How did I get through that? The grace of God and understanding how to really navigate the disease of alcoholism in a family environment. And then I had the opportunity to make a decision when I had lost most of my wealth 15 years ago. And I made a choice on how I could rebirth that wealth, and people showed up for me that really helped that journey. And you know, I'm happier and healthier and wealthier than I was then. And it's really even not about that. It's about, like, you have two choices when stuff gets hard. You give up or you go through it. And when you go through it, you have to grow through it, because we don't want to experience the same thing again, right? You don't want to go through a painful season twice when you could have avoided it the second time because of changes. And I think that's purpose as well. When I had lost my wife, and I remember leaning up against a wall in our home next to one of her portraits, and John, my 13-year-old, I was crying, and it was a very sad moment and a very sad experience to watch your 49-year-old wife pass away. But my son came up to me and I was crying, and he looked at me and he said, "Dad, I know this hurts. It hurts for me too. I don't even know how to comprehend how much it hurts. But you got to do what you teach people to do. And that's a gift from my 13-year-old son in the state of having lost my wife and lost my wealth. And it just reminded me right then and there, you know what? Everything I had that I've lost, I still have who I am to experience that again. And that's the power of this. And John said, you got to tell people to keep going, Dad. You got to keep going. We need you. And he even said, the world needs you. And that was just inspiring to me. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we all have a choice. You give up to go up. You know, you don't go through something, you grow through something. And the only time life will settle down is when you stop dreaming or you die. And then it settles down really, really fast. Yeah, always move forward, see the light of the world. I love that. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, I am gratefully fulfilled today by hanging out with you guys. And I know we had a smaller audience, but again, I just want to remind you, invite your team to Leadership Live. Invite the people that you know in leadership. Invite your friends into Fuel. You know, it is the best thing I have ever done to be a visionary around creating this resource that is going global. And we got a lot of beautiful instructors like today with the guys that showed up, and they have the same heart I have, and that's to make a difference. And invite as many people as you can to this, and share it when the repost comes out. And Scott, we have John Murphy next week, right?
That's correct.
Right. And what is John talking about next week? What's our topic? Do you know? I saw a marketing piece, but I haven't seen it go out yet. I think I saw it this morning. Oh, it's in the invite today because John was going to be on today. I think he's talking about turning adversity into advantage. I love that topic, how to take adversity into advantage. Maybe it picks up where we left off today. But hey, I appreciate you guys hanging out, and love you tons. And don't keep Fuel a secret. If you're a leader, best thing you can do is have your entire team come and watch and experience Fuel. And we can help you win in ways that you desire. And we can help you elevate the team experience. We can help you create happier, more joyful people. And it's a joy having you as friends and followers of Fuel. So have a blessed rest of the day on Wednesday, the wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you next week on Leadership Live. Join us Mondays as well at 8 o'clock for Mindful Mondays. We start the week off with some really deep kind of thinking and stuff. It's really joyful. And then speaking of John Murphy, we are going to be launching Fearless Fridays, probably within 3 weeks or so. And so look forward to a couple more live shows coming your way. All right. Thanks, Scott, for being my producer and host. And